Good morning. Let's start. Let me ask you if you can introduce yourself, please.
Yes, I'm Andrea Chronis Tuscano. I'm a clinical psychologist and the Joel and Kim Feller Endowed Professor at the University of Maryland College Park, where I direct the Maryland ADHD program and the Succeeds College ADHD Clinic.
Beautiful. And so you come wearing your hat as an ADHD researcher, but also as a human who has been attracted to ADHD for probably a number of different personal life reasons that tends to be happening. Let's start with ADHD research often is very focused on children and the classroom. You've done a lot of work in the past working with ADHD in children. You're beginning to have some interest in pregnancy clinics. What Tell us a little bit about what's got you looking in that direction. I know you're not fully there yet; you're still in a pilot phase, but what's got you going in that direction?
Yes. So for many years, we have looked at how the family environment and parent ADHD can influence the trajectory um, which children with ADHD follow. And this is sort of a complicated topic because there's biology and genetics, but also a lot of environmental factors that can influence the path that children with ADHD take. And so over the years, we've been creeping earlier and earlier. And gosh, many years ago when I was pregnant, I was sitting at the OBGYN waiting room looking around, thinking about all the things I had to do as a pregnant person and thinking, wow, all of these appointments, and I'm supposed to take these vitamins and not eat this and not do this and not drink and just there's so many things and planning for the future and setting up the baby's room and getting the car seat. And at the time, I was on my laptop doing my work on parents with ADHD, thinking, wow, this must be a really difficult time for parents with ADHD. And that, of course, uh, the mom's ability to follow through on all of these medical recommendations is influencing the developing fetus and who is by virtue of genetics at risk for ADHD. And so I was thinking, wouldn't it be cool if we could back this up and start to support these women while they're pregnant? And pregnancy is also a time when many women with ADHD stop taking their ADHD medications. They're getting conflicting recommendation about whether it's safe or not to take their stimulants. And so, anyway, some years
You
ago,
want to
I met.
debunk that myth real quick?
Mm-mm. Yes, so there are different thoughts on this, and it's not as clear cut as many people thought it was. Where initially, women were told you need to stop taking your medication as soon as you're thinking about becoming pregnant, and during pregnancy and breastfeeding, you really shouldn't be taking your medication. But now we know this is really an individual decision, and that there's growing research from archival data showing that stimulants might not be as dangerous during pregnancy. But in any case, it's a discussion that has to take place between a woman and her psychiatrist and her OBGYN to really decide on the best plan for her. But there's still lots of misconceptions out there. And so I started talking and working with a psychiatrist, Heather Joseph, who's at the University of Pittsburgh, and she's been studying the fetal environment for women with ADHD and the types of stressors that they experience during pregnancy and the postpartum and the implications this has for the infant. And so this was a natural partnership. And she and I started adapting my treatment manual for mothers and fathers with ADHD to pregnant individuals with ADHD. And so we've been piloting that for the past year or so. And it's been really, really exciting.
Before we go on with this session, I just wanted to remind you that you can still upgrade to the Summit's VIP Pass. Besides the lifetime access to all the sessions, you also get the audio files, you get the workbook for each session, you get the expert action blueprint with key takeaways from each masterclass, you get the English subtitles, and really a bunch of other things that will save you tons of time and really make a huge difference with your kid and with your family relationships. So, if you're a busy parent and you want to get the most out of the summit, then I really encourage you to find the button somewhere on this page and go check it out. You can still get access at a discounted price before our summit ends. And now, let's get you back to the program.
So there's this issue. I mean, I think what I'm hearing is you're looking at the conditions that create the child before the child is born.
Yes,
So is there a first and second, like what's being passed down? You've got genes. I hear you say you've got stress. You've got an
exactly.
emotional climate. Like,
Mhm.
is something on first?
Well, that we don't know that yet. It sort of all goes together, and they're transactional influences, right? So as mom is more stressed during pregnancy, that develops that influences the development of the infant's HPA system. So there's so many different biological influences, and then of course once baby is born, you're exhausted and you're not getting enough sleep, and so that adds stress, and you're learning to take care of this new human while you're tired. And for many women, again, not taking their medication, they may have varying levels of social support in that postpartum period. And part of our rationale is also that it's easier to teach new habits before bad habits are formed. So, in terms of the structure and the getting the baby on a schedule, but yet being flexible and being able to deal with sometimes, you have a baby with a difficult temperament. And we actually know from Heather Joseph's research that it's more likely that the infants of new mothers with ADHD will have difficult temperament. So there are these transactional influences that are starting right away, and so the biology and the environment are really intertwined. And so, of course, the environment is usually much more modifiable. So we're starting there, and it's been really fun.
Oh, interesting. So many things come up for me as I'm hearing you say it, right? So, first of all, I sit here having this conversation with you because I had such a complex child and those early years were so difficult,
Mm,
right? That experience bears out in so many people that I've talked to and worked with over the years. I also, what I've learned in doing this work is that you don't actually break habits, you create new ones. And so,
yes.
what I hear you describing is that if we can get to women early and help them create healthy habits instead of
Hmm.
kind of defaulting to unhealthy habits, we are likely to set the family dynamic up for better success. Is that kind of what I'm hearing?
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think that new moms tend to neglect themselves. But just as we need to be super parents with children with ADHD, we also need to really take care of our new moms with ADHD and help them realize how important it is that they're taking care of their own well-being, sleep, diet, exercise, social connections, all of those things, yes,
And
are
yet
yeah, even more
and yet
important.
they see it as a luxury, not a necessity, right?
Mhm, mhm.
So
Or they might not be thinking about it at all, right? They're so tired.
I have this memory of somebody taking the baby for the first time, a couple months old, and saying, "Go, just go take care of yourself." And I remember arriving someplace and walking around crying because I didn't know what to do with myself.
Mhm,
'Cause I had been so immersed, and I think as an ad now I know I was an adult with ADHD. I never thought about till this moment, but I was hyper focused on
mhm,
this role as a new mom, and so
mhm.
everything else went out the window because that was the only thing that had my attention.
Right, right. And you're setting sort of a new structure, this whole, okay, eating, sleeping, changing, and for those of us who are used to sort of getting up and going to work, and you're not doing that for a period of time. So you're setting your new structure and routines, and they're always changing as the baby is changing and developing. And so being really mindful about the different ways of taking care of yourself, in part so that you can take care of your baby, but also that taking care of yourself is in and of itself an important thing that we all need to be doing, but especially for new parents with ADHD.
Yeah, and it's such a difficult message to get across to people who are caring for another person, that you
Mhm.
got to start with yourself. It
A
feels counterintuitive to people, right?
Mhm.
So
Yes.
so let's move a little bit. So we're talking you're talking a little bit about the structure and the logistics of self-care. Let's look a little bit at the emotional intelligence, the EQ of early parenting and any kind of parenting with ADHD. Um, talk a little bit about that.
Absolutely. So, hormones are bouncing all over the place during pregnancy and the postpartum. And we know that, many, if not most, people with ADHD have difficulty regulating positive emotions and negative emotions. And that sometimes when we get caught up in our emotions, we can't be as present in the moment. And so, forming those initial bonds with the baby, eventually modeling for the baby how to regulate themselves, and also being able to form a strong attachment. Those are so important. And of course, emotion regulation is harder when you're not sleeping. So I think that that's just another whole um, focus that we need to take is getting sleep, figuring out how to get that sleep, so that you could be at your best during a time when many people are having difficulty regulating. And that happens during pregnancy as well. And as I mentioned before, the mom's self-regulation influences the development of the infant's biological systems that allow them to regulate their emotions. And as babies, for example, with a difficult temperament, might be crying more and having a harder time getting on a sleep schedule, those babies require the parent to be even more sort of even and regulated. And rather than the parent going on an emotional roller coaster along with the baby, that the parent is able to be sort of calming and steady. And that is just so hard for many people with ADHD.
I was just talking to one of my kids about this the other day because again, I really do sit here because my first child was so complicated. And there's this picture that I keep.
Mhm.
And it sounds weird, but I think you'll understand. So I had a baby who screamed for 6 months.
Mm.
We later found out there was celiac disease, but that was 10 years later.
Oh, wow.
And so there was a lot of screaming. And so there's this picture of me holding the baby, and the baby's looking out, the baby's screaming, and I'm laughing. And it's not that I thought it was funny, right? But there's this point where you can't get sucked into it.
Right. Right.
Right? Or then everybody's in a hot mess. And
Right.
so laughter was almost the antidote to it. And so there's this
Mhm.
nature and nurture biology, emotional environment piece that you're playing with here.
Mhm.
Um, can you look and say is the ADHD trajectory more one than the other? Is it
I think what they say is if you've met one person with ADHD, you've met one person with ADHD. So different people with ADHD might have different profiles of executive functioning difficulties and emotion regulation difficulties. And no two people are exactly the same, not to mention the contextual support that people may or may not have. So the example that you gave is someone said, let me take the baby and you go off. And we know that for many people, there is no one, right? They may be more isolated. They might not be able to call on someone or have a partner who's co-parenting with them that can allow them to get more sleep.
or if the baby is really, really complicated, they may not
Right.
be able to pass the baby. A lot of people, they can't get a babysitter. They can't nobody else
Exactly.
can handle this high need child.
Yes, I remember with my first son, who also was a bit of a challenge. I had my psychologist friends babysitting him because I knew they would, they'd figure out what to do. But yes, that's right. And for many people, it's hard to find someone or family members. We see this a lot with the expectant moms that we're working with now. Family members all have their own views on what you should be doing. right? Or, of course, the baby's behaving this way because you're doing XYZ. So, being able to set limits in that way is just so incredibly important. And to stick to what think and know is the best. But the other thing I was going to say is that for women who might have uh, experienced trauma, or who may be experiencing other environmental stressors like poverty, the stress levels are even higher, and it can be even harder to get the break that you need. So I think that we need to be thinking about all of those factors and how we can best provide the kind of support that's going to help. The other thing I wanted to mention is that things like mindfulness, meditation can actually change one's physiology. So some of the strategies that we teach could actually have a beneficial effect on mom's physiology, and if she's pregnant, then the baby's physiology as well. So I think that we teach lots of different skills, and we haven't yet begun to parse apart what types of effects does each of these skills have on mom and baby, and that's what we're hoping to do with our program of research.
I love that. So let's talk a little bit more about research. You split parenting into the structure and the emotion. Is that right?
Yes, really, the executive functioning, structure, organization, schedule, flexibility, problem solving, and then the emotional reactivity and regulation. How you're responding to the baby, what you do when you're stressed out, how able you are to kind of still um, be steady Eddie, even when things around you are a bit chaotic, because we know that household chaos is predictive of worse outcomes for kids with ADHD.
Yeah. So is there a correlation? Like, does better organization create more emotional stability, or emotional stability make better, organization possible? Is there something that comes first here?
Oh, well, we know that they're transactional influences. I think it would be hard to pinpoint based on the research we have now what comes first, and if the same thing comes first for different people. But really, we know that working on all of those things together in an integrated format tends to help the parent and the baby do better over time. And we're also really careful to not make it sound like we're blaming parents. We don't want to go back 40 years where parents were blamed for all sorts of things like autism and ADHD. We're not blaming, we're trying to support parents who might be having an even more difficult time making this transition to parenthood.
So, yeah. I mean, what jumps at me is, I hear parents say, "Did I do this? Did I give this to them?" And
Mhm.
and I've heard you say maybe you passed your ADHD on, but you can pass on stability or skills or structure, right?
Absolutely. And you could also be a role model that learned and uses strategies to compensate for some of those challenges. And in some ways, parents with ADHD might be in a better place to teach their kids how to cope once they learn how to cope.
Or while they're learning how to cope. There's a
Mhm.
transparency that I think parents can share to say, "Yeah, I'm struggling with this and I did this."
Mhm.
That really helps a kid feel like they're not in it alone.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So, so you've said that calm makes structure possible and structure keeps calm sustainable, which I love, by the way. What a beautiful framework. Can you help people who are listening understand the essence of that kind of symbiotic relationship?
Mhm. Mhm. Yes. So if you think about that feeling, you might wake up in the morning and start thinking about all the different things that you have to do. And you can feel your blood pressure rising, and you might be snippier with the people around you. And if you have strategies like, okay, I'm going to write these things down, right? And I'm going to take a look at this list and say, what do I absolutely have to do right now? What would be nice to do but isn't absolutely essential? And how am I going to get started? That helps you then to sort of calm down and not feel the chaos in your head of, that too many tabs open feeling that people describe. And that could lead to sort of more of a sense of, okay, I got this. I can do the first thing, right? Or to be able to say to yourself, this was my intention of how the day was going to go, but it's not going this way. And that's okay. I can take a breath and figure out how to make the day work better. Or, that feeling of I've just got a handle on how to set up my day with this new baby. And now all of a sudden they're changing, they're teething. They didn't sleep as well as they did the last couple nights. And so now what do I do? What should I prioritize? To kind of give them that sense of agency and that sense of, feeling of competence that I can handle this, and also connecting them to other parents going through the same thing with ADHD. That's going to be an important part of this, to realize that I'm doing my best and I'm actually doing a really good job. Uh, so to kind of shift their way of thinking, and also the sort of unrealistic expectations they might be setting for themselves, or maybe the types of expectations that family members might have for them, and to be comfortable with, I'm actually doing a really good job. And that this went well, this didn't. That doesn't mean that I'm failing as a new parent. We really do work with thoughts, feelings, behaviors, and then organizational strategies. Um, that can be helpful for everyone. All of these things that we work with them on are things that could be helpful for everyone, but it may just be a little bit harder for people with ADHD, and a little bit more important because maybe others would be able to bounce back a little bit faster.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit as kids age and parents are managing their own ADHD or not, or maybe they have it or they don't. You've talked a little about consistent parental calm. You use the term. You encourage mothers to share their calm. We at
Mhm.
Impact we talk about commit to calm, right?
Mhm.
Get first you got to commit to it before you can even get to it. Um, so one of the things I've noticed in my practice over the years is there are a lot of parents, a lot of moms in particular, who come for support because they don't have a model for mothering,
Mhm.
right? For a lot of different reasons.
Right.
What do you tell moms who didn't see calm modeled for them in their own childhoods, who you're trying to kind of bring that to them now? How do you talk about that?
Yeah, that is really tricky. And we ran into that quite a bit because they often don't have support from their own moms now, that they're about to embark on this new journey of parenthood. So it is tricky. And I think that kind of understanding that this is what it was like for me as a child, and how would I like it to be different? How can I start to create, my own parenting story, and how can I get support from others around those things? Like, um, for a lot of parents, we work with emotion coaching. So, helping them to sort of recognize when their baby or their older child is having an emotion, and being able to feel like it's okay to have emotions. Well, in many families growing up, it wasn't okay to have emotions. But then how did that feel, and how could we support this new parent in recognizing, acknowledging, labeling emotions in their baby and in themselves, um, because that helps to give a vocabulary around emotions, and that you don't have to react to every emotion, right? And then they also learn to have more grace with themselves when they're having emotions. And so I think it's harder, right? If you didn't have those emotion regulation role models yourself growing up. And so prioritizing that, sometimes parents who didn't have that are even more eager and committed to creating that for their infant. And they're not going to be perfect all the time, right? It's not going to be like, for any parent in any type of situation, you're going to make mistakes. But can you then say to yourself, it's okay, all parents make mistakes? Do you have your sort of village of other parents who you can commiserate with about how I actually didn't handle that situation very well? And to hear from them saying, that happens. I do that all the time. And we're so good at telling someone else, well, that's okay. You also do all these great things. And it's hard to be on all the time, especially if you're exhausted. But saying that for other people, we're not always giving ourselves the same grace that we give to others.
Yeah, for sure. We often say in coaching, like, would you say that what you say to yourself, would you say that to your best friend? And
Yeah.
most often the answer is no.
Right.
Um, you've said before that the most dangerous thing a mother can be is emotionally depleted. So,
Mm.
what happens neurologically in the child when a caregiver is anxious or rushed or dysregulated?
Yeah. Well, there is a concordance often for, the way that we respond emotionally and even physiologically um, affects our kids, right? It's like there's a direct pipeline, of course, in utero, but even otherwise. And it's referred to as synchrony in the research literature. And synchrony can be good for mothers and babies or mothers and children. But when mom is dysregulated, that can sort of fuel the fire with the child. And so the emotional depletion, I think, comes when we're not taking care of ourselves, we're not taking time to do things that we enjoy or that are important to us, we're not getting enough sleep, we're not prioritizing our own exercise, even if it means getting some fresh air and taking a walk around the block. We're not for some women it's really important to be engaged in work, or to be going to participate in some sort of religious practice or seeing friends. And there are a lot of ways that we can do this and a social environment. So maybe, you take the stroller and your neighbor, or your sister who just had a baby, you go for a walk together. Or, maybe the baby is sleeping and you take a little bit of time to watch an episode of your favorite Netflix show, even though you might be telling yourself, I should be doing the dishes and I should be doing the laundry. But actually, the best thing I can do for my baby and I right now is to, light a candle and open my book, or watch a little bit of TV, or take a 30-minute nap. If that's going to help me to be ready when they wake up, to again provide the best environment for them.
Is there like
Important
almost
for everyone.
is there almost a downstream effect? Like for a mom to manage her ADHD or her mental health, what's the impact for the child's behavior or academics or
Mhm.
whatever as you move forward?
Yeah. Well, you're also modeling, right? Everything we do, whether we realize it or not, is modeling something for our kids. And so you're also teaching them to prioritize their well being. And, and, usually the dishes will get done, right? And if you have people around you to support you, feeling okay asking them, hey, can you get the dishes? Or maybe, we can make an easy dinner or get takeout or something once in a while, just so that there isn't that immense pressure. Women in our society experience and feel so much pressure to be perfect in every aspect of their lives. And it's no wonder stress levels are so high. Our former Surgeon General even came out with a white paper on parenting stress and how parents are under pressure and parent mental health is such a priority. It really is. Um, and so if we're short tempered and not patient because we're doing too much, that is not going to help our kids.
No. Well, I love that concept of modeling. Jamie Lee Curtis said something like, "Kids are like the paparazzi. They're
Mm.
gonna catch you at every moment and then repeat it at the worst possible
Yes, and if we can say things like, "Gosh, I really got frustrated in traffic the other day. Next time, maybe I'll just put on some music and try to relax. Or to even say, wow, I could feel myself getting frustrated. We're going to be late. Let's play our favorite music and just kind of try to relax a little bit. And sometimes, speaking of driving in the car, being able to maybe call a friend while you're driving, or to listen to a book, or to listen to favorite music that's going to help us to regulate. Figuring out how to insert those little joyful moments into things that we have to do. Yeah, micro moments. Yeah. Because of course, the first thing parents say is, "Oh, I don't have any time for that." We're not talking about going away on a retreat, or going on a date night every week, or something like that. It could be these little moments, and of course, we do need those longer breaks, but those aren't always going to be possible. So we need to figure out how to build into our day to day those little things that will help to recharge us emotionally and physically. Right? Because many moms suffer from things like migraines, or gosh, I have so many friends who are, talking about the combination of menopause and teen parenting, and it's like, gosh, how could, how could we get through this? And having that community is really important.
Yeah. So there's a focus on the role of the mom, the self-care of the mom, the connection and relationships of the mom, the community. All of that is actually in service of the child. And
Yeah.
again, I think a lot of parents feel like if I have a moment to spend, I'm going to spend it on my kid. And what I hear you
Mhm.
saying is, if you take some of that moment for yourself, it has a benefit for the kid.
Absolutely. And that's exactly right. We see a lot of women who would never get mental health treatment for themselves, but they are there for their child, and they will do anything it takes to improve their parenting, to improve their child's functioning. And that's why we sort of infuse or insert parent mental health strategies into interventions for the kids, so that they're getting a 2 for 1, and their motivation often is not to help themselves, it's to help their kids. But we sell them on the fact that they're one and the same, really.
We do too. All right, Andrea, it's been a delightful conversation. We're going to move into rapid fire. Are you ready? As we
Sure.
kind of wrap up this conversation. So, first question is, does treating a mother's ADHD improve the child's outcome faster than treating the child's?
That's interesting. And I don't think we have the scientific longitudinal answer to that yet in terms of faster. But we know that behavioral interventions for kids work very well. When the parent is stressed or depressed or has ADHD, those behavioral interventions don't work as well. So, by treating the parent alongside the child, we're working on all of the factors that play into that transactional relationship, which we know does affect how the child does over time.
Beautiful. I love that. If calm can be taught, does that make emotional regulation a skill or a practice?
Well, it's a skill that we have to practice, right? And so we've got to build that muscle. So the only way to build a muscle is by repeated practice, right? And we're hoping that these strategies become automatic, right? Just like when you wake up in the morning and you kind of go through your morning routine of brushing your teeth and taking a shower and eating your breakfast, and you're on autopilot. That is our goal for the parents, to be on autopilot using these organizational skills, these emotion regulation skills, these cognitive behavioral skills. We want them to be an automatic for the parents.
Now, we talk a lot at Impact about there's information and then there's integration, then there's implementation, and
Yes,
then transformation, right? But
yes,
it's not just information, it's what you do with it, how you bring it into your life and you implement, you practice it that really
right.
gives you the shift that you're looking for.
Exactly. That's
Yeah,
exactly right.
beautiful. So, is there an observation from your childhood that kind of dictates the questions that you ask in your lab?
Oh, that's an interesting one. Yes, I definitely was raised by strong and remarkable women, and I was raised by a single mom, but she had the support around her, and just I always felt so much love. So in the face of adversity, that sort of love and attachment is it can really help you get through anything, right? And knowing that people believe in you. And so we want to create that type of environment for kids with ADHD, any kid, really. I mean, as negative circumstances come up, to help them to walk alongside them so that they can be successful. And we know that sometimes the behaviors of children with ADHD can elicit negative reactions from family members and parents and contribute to the stress. And so what's really important is to remind parents to see that good in their kids and to be able to nurture that, and to believe in them and to help them, because we know, there are going to be bumps in the road for any kid at various transition points, and that those bumps are often bigger for kids with ADHD as they move into more and more demanding environments, as they age. So being able to, to feel that genuine love and attachment is incredibly important.
Yeah, we talk a lot about holding a vision for your kids, even when
Mhm.
they can't hold it for or they're not ready to hold it for themselves. And I was thinking as you were speaking about, when I was diagnosed in my 40s.
Mm.
And when I was diagnosed, the first thing I did was I called my mom and I said, "Hey, mom, guess what we've got?" And there's been something in the process of learning and understanding and managing my own ADHD that's helped me understand my mother and who and how she was a mother to me because
Mm,
her ADHD was not diagnosed, obviously, um,
right.
until much later. So I'm curious, do you think you got into this work, that you became a scientist understanding the brain because of your fascination with the brain, or because there was something about like what you were trying to connect with your mom? Like what was happening for you?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. I have to admit that I was always very interested in parenting, maybe because of my own experiences. The focus on ADHD was actually just serendipitous because Dr. Pelham, who recently passed away in the last couple of years, yeah, he is a leader in the field of ADHD and behavioral interventions and combination treatments, with medication and behavioral interventions. And he happened to join the faculty of my PhD program while I was there at the same time that my advisor had decided to retire. So it was extraordinarily fortunate for me to be able to become a part of his research empire, which really led me to where I am now, because I worked with so many parents, and those clinical observations is what really led me to feel like we need to focus on taking care of these parents, for whatever reason. This is not an easy job for anyone, but if for parents struggling with their own mental health, we need to take care of them too.
For sure. So, what do you think's the most helpful? And I want to say thanks for sharing that because I was a big fan of his, and I got to interview him a number of years ago, and he really did some really groundbreaking research on parent training. So I can imagine how exciting that was for you. Um, what's the most hopeful research you've ever done?
Well, I think that that the field of AD, there's a lot to be hopeful for. We all know so many, wonderfully successful people with ADHD, you being one of them, right? So knowing that many people with ADHD who find their passion, and learn how to cope can be incredibly happy and successful. And the question is, how do we help to foster the development of those coping skills? And how do we help people with ADHD sort of find what they're passionate about? Because we know once they get to the point where they're passionate, then they lock in and their enthusiasm cannot be matched, right? And so that's how we got into our work with college students and transition age individuals, because that is the point in time where that parental scaffolding starts to fall away. And so how do we help individuals with ADHD to get what they want out of life, to live life in line with their values and their passions and their interest? And so I find that incredibly exciting and hopeful that we try to nurture this from the very beginning, including in utero, right? And then we try to create an environment that fosters growth and development and successful transitions across the lifespan in a way that will help individuals with ADHD use all the gifts that they're given, to really to self-actualize and to be as happy and independent and passionate individuals and members of society that we know that they can be. So I think ADHD is one of the most fun and hopeful populations to work with.
I love that answer. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
All right, my last question. There are dozens of online parenting events like this out there. From your lens, what sets this summit and this team apart from others?
Well, I'm a big fan of evidence-based information, and I think it's so challenging these days with the amount of information available on the internet and social media to sift through misinformation and really scientifically based information. And one of the things I appreciate about the summit is the engagement of scientists and practitioners who are talking about cutting edge, well researched information. And so I think it's a go to for evidence based information about parenting and about ADHD. And I'm really happy to have been a part of it. So thank you.
Pleasure. Thank you for being here. It was delightful talking with you.
Same.
Are you loving the advice and insights you're getting? Well, you can get lifetime access to all the summit session when you upgrade your ticket to the VIP pass. This means you're not only getting unlimited access to the sessions, you will also unlock the audio version of the entire summit, expert action blueprint with key takeaways and action steps, English subtitles, and a brilliant workbook that will help you implement everything that you get. You see, the VIP Pass is purposely designed to help you digest all of the content from the summit and implement this advice in your own life. And as you know, the internet is flooded with advice about ADHD. But how much of it actually comes from credible sources? How many times have you been led astray by unknown or unverified advice? Well, unlimited access to the entire summit is a place where information is not only just abundant, it's also trustworthy. So, if you want to be confident in the ADHD strategies every step of the way, then I think this is a place to start. I'm totally positive that you're gonna love the VIP Pass and all of the valuable resources that we have created for you. It's like having a personal library of expert knowledge right in your pocket. And here's the best part. If for any reason at all you don't love it, we'll refund you in full. No questions asked. So you really have nothing to lose. Grab your VIP Pass now and don't miss this opportunity.